as it is. Chapter 5, Karma Yoga, Action and Krishna Consciousness. I'll start with text number 13. Let's begin with offering our obeisances to Srila Prabhupada. Namo Om Vishnu Padaya Krishna Prasthaya Bhutale Srimate Bhaktivedanta Swami Namane Namaste Saraswati Deve Gauravani Vicharane Nirvishesha Srinivadi Paskadyade Siddharna Sarva Karmani Manasa Sanyasyaste Sukhamvasi Navadvare Paredehi Naiva Korvam Nakaryan. When the embodied soul, living being controls his nature and mentally renounces all activities, then he lives happily in the city of 9 gates, the material body, neither working nor causing work to be done. Prabhupada's purport: the embodied soul lives in the city of 9 gates. The activities of the body, or the figurative city of the body, are conducted automatically by its particular modes of nature. The soul, although subjecting himself to the conditions of the body, can be beyond those conditions if he so desires. Owing only to forgetfulness of his superior nature, he identifies with the material body and therefore suffers. By Krishna consciousness, he can revive his real position, thus come out of his embodiment. Therefore, when one takes the Krishna consciousness, one at once becomes completely aloof from bodily activities. In such a controlled life, in which his deliberations are changed, he lives happily in the city of 9 gates. The 9 gates are mentioned as follows. Navadvare paredehi hangso leilayate bahi vashi sarvasya lokasya stavarasya charasya cha. Supreme Personality of Godhead, who is living within the body of a living entity, is the controller of all living entities all over the universe. The body consists of 9 gates: 2 eyes, 2 nostrils, 2 ears, 1 mouth, the anus, and the genitals. The living entity in his conditional stage identifies himself with the body, but when he identifies himself with the Lord within himself, he becomes just as free as the Lord, even while in the body. Shveta Svitara Upanishad. Therefore, a Krishna conscious person is free from both the outer and inner activities of the material body. The text again: Sarva Karmani Manasa Sanyasyaste Sukhamvasi Naiva Dvare Paredehi Naiva Korvam Nakaryan. When the embodied living being controls his nature and mentally renounces all actions, he resides happily in the city of 9 gates, material body, neither working nor causing work to be done. Om Agyana Timirandasya Gananjana Salakaya Chaksur Unmilitam Yena Tasmai Shri Gurve Namaha. In the Bhagavad Gita, Krishna has told us in the 13th chapter, Kshetra Kshetragya Enam Antara Jnana Chakshusha Bhuta Prakriti Moksham Cha Ye Vidur Yantite Param. That those who can see the difference between the body, the knower of the body, Kshetra Kshetragya Evam, both the body and the knower of the body, and Kshetra Kshetragya Jnanam Enam Antara Jnana Chakshusha Bhuta Prakriti Moksham Cha. So the Bhuta is ourselves, the living entities, and Prakriti is material nature, Bhuta Prakriti Moksham Cha, and we can come free from the entanglement with material nature. Bhuta Prakriti Moksha Cha Ye Vidur Yantite Param. And then we can go to the supreme destination. So our first business is to acquire knowledge. spiritual knowledge. Krishna has praised spiritual knowledge as the boat that can take us across the ocean of material miseries. Sarva karmani manasa, that as apichet asipapebhya sarve papakritamaha sarvam jnana planevaiva rijinam santarishiti. That even if you're considered to be the most sinful of all sinners, if you're situated in the boat of transcendental knowledge, you can easily cross over the ocean of material miseries. Here, Prabhupada in the purport tells us how we can cross over this ocean of miseries. The main thing is that as long as we identify ourselves with this body or with the mind, there must be some degree of misery. Mamhu petya panarjanma dukalayam ashasvatam napnuvanti mahatmana samsiddhim paramangataha. After attaining me, mam upetya panarjanma, the soul never comes back to this material world, which is temporary and full of misery, because he has attained the highest destination. Abrahma bhuvana loka panavartanojana mamupetya punarjan tup konteya punarjanman navidite. From the highest planet in the material world down to the lowest, all the places of misery wherein repeated birth and death take place. Now, we may think, if I had the lifetime of Brahma, I wouldn't be worried at all. If I lived for 311 trillion, 40 billion years, I would enjoy my birthdays. I wouldn't worry. Even our Brahma, right now, he's middle age. He's already passed through 150 trillion years of his life. But still, he has another 150 trillion years left, so why worry about it? Practically, I'm going to live forever. But as I often tell that story about Loma Sharishi, who had his whole body was covered with hairs, and every time a Brahma would be born and die, and one of his hairs would fall out. But he'd live as long as he had any hair left on his body. While meditating on the Ganges, his disciple came to him and said, Guru Maharaj, let us build you a bhajan kutir because you're facing the sun all the time. But Lama Sharishi said, but what is the use? I'm only going to be alive for a short period of time. So we should take note that the main misery, janma, mrityu, jara, vyadi, dukkha, dosha, anudarshana. Old age, disease, and then death. And we may think, well, all right, I'm a spiritual being. Maybe I'll take birth again in some heavenly planet. Still, as soon as we take birth in a heavenly planet, then we start every day, every moment, we're growing closer to another death. And there's no guarantee where our next life will be after the heavenly planet. Of course, generally one comes back to the earthly planet to again struggle. Therefore, especially it's miserable, working hard, struggling, and then having to leave everything behind to go to some other place to begin again. Just like the mythology of Sisyphus, who was in a hole, and his occupation was to push a very heavy rock up the hole. And just when he was just to push it out of the hole, immediately the rock would fall back down and he'd have to start all over. And he was condemned or cursed to do that forever. Now we may think, poor Sisyphus, he's very unfortunate. But we're doing the same thing. working hard, taking birth. If we are fortunate enough to take birth as a human being somewhere, then again, we have to go through the same miseries. Baby teeth. Endure the pain of getting rid of our baby teeth. And then our adult teeth grow back again. Sometimes crooked. Sometimes we have to have operations to pull our molars out. Then again, we have to go to school and learn everything all over again. You can't say in school, when they're teaching you that 1 + 1 is 2, you can't say, well, I got my PhD in mathematics in my last life. Why do I have to go through this all again? And we have to go through the same thing all over again. And if we take birth as a lizard, we don't have to do very much. But life is not very exciting. There's nothing to learn. Of course, you spend your whole life bathing in the sun and trying to avoid being eaten by some other creature, but it's not a very productive life. Therefore, one should develop transcendental knowledge. And the most important part of transcendental knowledge is that everything here in the universe is both owned and controlled by the Supreme Person. Isha Vasha Idam Sarvam Jat Kinjat Jigam Jagat Tena Tena Vunditaha Magridaha Kasyasvidana. Because material nature is very unforgiving. Prabhupada would always use the example that if a child puts his hand in the fire doesn't say, well, it's just a child, I won't burn his hand, because he doesn't know any better. But as soon as he puts his hand in the fire will immediately burn it in the hand, whether it's a child or an adult or anyone else. Similarly, the laws of material nature are such, they act equally towards everyone. No one is innocent before the laws of material nature. And therefore, if we don't accept that the energy that we're dealing with belongs to the Supreme Personality of Godhead, then the result will be we get covered by material nature. Yayato vishayam pumsam sangas teshu pajayate. As soon as we forget Krishna's proprietorship, then naturally we'll think ourselves or someone else will be the proprietor. And then we'll try to figure out how to utilize whatever resources we have to satisfy ourselves or others. But then lust develops. It is not that we could try to control the material nature or enjoy the material nature free from lust. If Krishna is not there, Krishna Surya Samahaya Andhakar. Krishna is like the sun, and Maya is like darkness. If the sun is there, there can't be darkness. And if the sun's not there, there can only be darkness. Therefore, as soon as we think ourselves to be independent enjoyers or controllers in the material nature, then at once we're covered by darkness. And that darkness manifests itself as the 3 modes of material nature. Now we've achieved this body because of our previous activities. Sattvam, Rajas, Tamayiti, Guna, Prakriti, Sambhava, Divananti, Mahavaho, Dehe, Dehinam, Avyam. Our material bodies consist of 3 modes: goodness, passion, ignorance. And when the soul comes in contact with this body, he becomes conditioned by it. Now, especially in Kali Yuga, probably very few of us were born Brahmins in the mode of goodness. And that our whole business was cleanliness and truthfulness and religiosity, etc., etc. Kalo Sudra Sambhava. We were born, usually our parents, our friends, our teachers, we were trained, or Srila Bhaktivinoda Thakur said, we were born in ignorance as Shudras, and then by education, we became less than an animal. So it is not that we can't elevate our soul, ourselves, out of material existence, but it takes knowledge. Therefore it says, Janmana Jayate Shudra. By birth, everyone is born Shudra. Samskara Bhavat Dvija. But by some samskar, by some experience, then one can become twice born. Twice born means we get a little insight. Yes, I'm not this body. I'm actually a spirit soul. Everything I desire that I really hope for, I can achieve if I want to do it. I want to be eternal. I want to be free from old age, disease, and death. And I can achieve that in this human form of life. I want to be blissful and happy and loving all the time. And I can achieve that in the human form of life. I want to know how to do this, how to achieve my eternality and my natural state of happiness. I can gain that knowledge. Therefore, Krishna comes and he speaks Bhagavad Gita to Arjuna to inform him how he can become blissful eternally. Krishna did not speak Bhagavad Gita so that Arjuna could set up a business selling Bhagavad Gitas and therefore make enough money for the offering to the deities. That was not Krishna's purpose behind speaking Bhagavad Gita. Krishna is speaking Bhagavad Gita for the benefit of ourselves so we can achieve the highest state of happiness. But that entails some knowledge. And here the knowledge is explained that not only we're spiritual beings, but we have to learn discrimination between what is material and what is spiritual. What is a material desire and what is a spiritual desire? Spiritual desires are in connection with service to Krishna. Service to Krishna also has its background of dependency on Krishna. In other words, we can't serve Krishna because Krishna is served by bhakti. Of course, even if we don't have love for Krishna in the sense that we don't feel great affection and love towards Krishna at the present moment, still, by offering to follow Krishna's instructions, that's the seed of love. But Krishna's first instructions is don't think yourself to be the proprietor of this material energy. Does that mean that I'm not the proprietor, therefore I can't do anything? It all belongs to Krishna. Just like Arjuna, he didn't want to fight. He thought that if I fight, then I might have to kill my relatives. And if I kill my relatives, then I'll be unhappy. So why should I fight? So then Krishna told Arjuna that actually you're not the proprietor. So then Arjuna thought, well, if I'm not the proprietor, then why should I do anything? Maybe I should just renounce everything. Because right now, I'm thinking I'm the proprietor. So let me just give up everything and go into the forest. And I'll get my information about the war through some newspaper or something. But I don't want to fight. I have nothing to gain here. I have everything to lose. So Krishna told Arjuna, yes, you're not the proprietor, and you won't gain anything here, and you won't lose anything, but you have the opportunity to serve me. And if you serve me, then you'll gain your relationship with me. The Prophet gives the example, someone may work in a bank and he may count millions of dollars, but he doesn't consider even one penny to belong to himself. So similarly, if we have the vision that nothing belongs to me, we should also have the vision it all belongs to Krishna. Just like it's not sufficient to think, I'm not this body. But we should think, not only I'm not this body, but I'm the eternal servant of Krishna. One is negative, I'm not this body. The other is positive, which includes I'm not this body. I'm a spiritual being, and as a spiritual being, I'm part and parcel of Krishna. And therefore, as part and parcel of Krishna, my duty is to serve in Krishna consciousness. Just like a little part of a machine may one day realize it's not the whole machine. But still, it's part of the machine, and its duty is to work in cooperation with the rest of the parts of the machine. Then it becomes a valuable part of the machine. Just like our finger is not the whole body. It may pretend that it's the whole body. It may pick up a piece of paper and is expecting applause from the rest of the body. How nicely you picked up that piece of paper. And if it doesn't get the applause, then it may think, well, why work for the body? It's not appreciating my service. And therefore, please cut me off from the body. I'd rather be independent. But then if the finger is cut from the rest of the body, then it becomes completely useless. On the other hand, if the finger brings the food to the body, to the stomach, then it's doing its duty, and it also enjoys the results of the work as much as the rest of the body enjoys. Therefore, we have to identify ourselves with Krishna as a spiritual being, with the supreme spiritual being. And we have to see that everything here and everyone belongs to Krishna. If we have that simple idea, then we won't get entangled in while we're doing our activities. Now, it is not sufficient simply to understand that everything belongs to Krishna. We should also understand what Krishna wants us to do with his energies. So one is called karma yoga. We renounce the results of our work, thinking everything belongs to Krishna, but we may not know perfectly well what Krishna wants us to do. Now, in the Varna ashram system, people have an idea that the aim is to sacrifice for Krishna. But one may not intimately know Krishna that well, and therefore one may mechanically do his duties, but one may not know Krishna's inner desires, what Krishna really wants. Yes, I may be a Shudra, I may be serving the higher caste, I may do what I'm told, and therefore I get in return my maintenance. But is that what Krishna wants? Does Krishna want us to be agriculturalists and just grow food so we can feed our empty stomach and then offer some of that as sacrifice so rain can come? Sacrifice even to Vishnu so that rain can come, so we can make sure today I filled my empty stomach, and tomorrow the rain will come and the agriculture will come and I can fill my empty stomach tomorrow. Is that what Krishna wants? Or does Krishna want us to organize society in such a way is that everything is peaceful, so that everyone can enjoy peace in the society for as long as they remain in their bodies? That the rain will come, the criminals will be discouraged, people will smile at each other when they in the street and say, "Здравствуйте, ¿cómo estás?" Or everyone may know I'm eternal, and if I perform my meditations, I can eventually emerge in Brahman and become God. Is that what Krishna wants? No, Krishna wants us to get out of the material world. He doesn't want us to enjoy the material world or control the material world or simply spend our lives understanding the material world. He wants us to go back to the spiritual world. Therefore, higher than just karma yoga is knowledge of what Krishna wants. What is his priorities? Because Krishna wants us to maintain our bodies healthy, vivasya tattva jignasya, narto yaschaiha karma vi. That life is not meant just for sense gratification, but it's certainly, we should try to do something to keep our body healthy, because without a healthy body, then we struggle with even more with our minds and bodies. And therefore, we may more likely become distracted. And that's where someone like Vasudev Dutt. Vasudev Dutt was such an advanced devotee that although he had leprosy, and leprosy is such that sometimes leprosy, the body starts deteriorating, and sometimes insects come and they make a home in one's body and eat the rotten parts of the body. So Vasudev Dutt had leprosy, and insects were living in his body, worms and other types of insects. But he was so magnanimous that even if a worm fell out of his body, that he'd pick it up and put it back into his body, onto his body, so that he would provide for the maintenance of the worm by eating his own body. So he was so magnanimous, and yet he was a great devotee of Krishna. Of course, as mentioned here, we should imitate such a state of consciousness, because Vasudev Dutt was not living in his body, he was living with Krishna. The soul, as it explains, Anadi Bhat Nirgunadvat Paramatmayam Avyam, Sharira Stopi Kantiya Nakaroti Nalalipite. That those who can actually see with the eyes of eternity can see that the soul is transcendental, eternal, and beyond the modes of material nature. Despite contact with the material body, or Arjuna, the soul is neither entangled nor is he doing anything. Now, this is not a vision that we just theoretically can understand. It's not sufficient, although it's desirable to understand it theoretically. But the realization is certainly different from just the theory. And the realization comes when our hearts become pure and we tune on to channel Krishna. Prabhupada once said in a lecture that we all have a television in our heart. Unfortunately, at the present moment, our television is broken. Or at least we're watching the wrong channel. Watching the wrong channel also implies that our television is not working properly. Because even if we were watching the wrong channel, but we had a perfectly suitable heart or television in our heart, then we'd see everything in relation to Krishna. sometimes Srila Prabhupada would be on an airplane, or at least one time it's mentioned, that Shruti Kirti Prabhu noticed that Prabhupada was watching the movie on the plane. Now, most of us, if we watched the movie on the plane, we'd get disturbed by it. But Prabhupada was watching the movie and having a great time. It was a Charlie Chaplin movie. By the way, this is not an advertisement so that we can all watch Charlie Chaplin movies. Because Prabhupada watched the Charlie Chaplin movie. That doesn't make all the movies by Charlie Chaplin authorized. Just like one time Prabhupada, on the airplane, they gave him a 7-Up. It's a drink, a lemon drink with some sugar in it. So Prabhupada accepted and drank it. And then when the word came out that Prabhupada drank 7-Up, the temple presidents ordered cases of 7-Up because now it became officially acceptable to drink 7-Up. So Prabhupada was watching this movie on in the airplane and having a great time. Now, Prabhupada, when he was asked about that, he said, well, when a pure devotee sees something, such as Charlie Chaplin, he appreciates that Krishna is the talent, is the ability in this particular person, Charlie Chaplin. Therefore, he's not exactly just seeing Charlie Chaplin. He's also seeing Krishna, how he's doing these amazing things, or seemingly amazing things. Similarly, if our hearts are pure, then we'll see everyone and everything in relation with Krishna. Sarvabhutastam Atmanam, Sarvabhutani Chatmani, Ikshite Yoga Yuktatma, Sarvatra Samadarshana. The true yogi observes me in all beings and also sees every being in me. Indeed, the self-realized soul sees me, the same Supreme Lord, everywhere. And for one who sees me everywhere and sees everything in me, I am never lost to him, nor is he ever lost to me. Therefore, Krishna says, for instance, in Bhagavad Gita, that Rasoham Apsnukantiya, that I'm the taste in water. So, what does that mean? It means water belongs to Krishna. The taste of the water comes from Krishna. Rasoham Apsnukantiya, Pravasi Shasi Suri. I'm the light in the sun and moon. It's not that we just look at the sun and moon and say, oh, that's nice, Krishna, you're so kind. You're supplying sunlight or moonlight. No, this is to give us some understanding that both the sun and the moon belong to Krishna, that he's the one who's giving it to us. It's not something impersonal. It's very personal. Everything is very personal, actually. Everything may have its impersonal aspect, but also has its personal aspect. Therefore, if Krishna is supplying us with water, with sunlight, with moonlight, he has a purpose to do it, that we can utilize our energies in his service. That's called Jnana Yoga. And what is the service? Yari Deka Tarikaha Krishna Upadesh Amara Aga Gurahana Taridek. That whoever we meet, we should try to tell them or help them understand their relation with Krishna. At least make some progress towards understanding what their relation with Krishna is. So that is the knowledge we should cultivate. Knowledge of how to connect with Paramatma within our heart so that we can see things more clearly and understand what is the information that Krishna is giving us to help others become Krishna conscious. We may not be so expert. We may just be beginning. But when Krishna sees that we sincerely desire to please him by helping inform others about their relation with Krishna in some way or another, then dadami buddhi yogam tam. Then he'll give us intelligence how to do that. One may go on book distribution and have no idea what to do. Of course, one should find out from others who are more experienced. But still, even if one has no idea, then Krishna will also help. Because that's his mission. Whatever we're doing, if we're consciously connecting it with Krishna's mission to bring his other children back to the spiritual kingdom, then Krishna says in Bhagavad Gita, Ya idam paramanguyam mad bhakteshva vajachati bhakti mai param kritva mame vaishyati samshaya. That for one who preaches this message to the devotees, devotional service is guaranteed, and he'll come back to me. That there's no servant in this world more dear to me than him, nor will there ever be one more dear. Now we may think, well, I don't have an opportunity to go out in the street and distribute these books. I don't have an opportunity even to go on Harinam. I just have to work and live with my family. Well, hopefully our family is also devotees. And if they're not devotees, then we have a service to do to help them become devotees. Well, I'm at work. Well, maybe it's a fact. We're not going to convert all the employers in our work to become devotees, but we can give them some prasadam. For those who are a little bit more curious, we can give them some books. There's something we can do to help others become Krishna conscious. And that's all we have to do. As one devotee once said, Prabhupada, how can I become a great devotee? And Prabhupada said, don't try to become a great devotee, just try to become a devotee. Krishna is not expecting us to become the liberators of the entire world. Jagat Guru. Krishna himself says that he's the friend of everyone. He's the enjoyer, he's the controller, and he's the friend. We don't have to take his place. We're not in charge of saving the world. As Prabhupada once said or wrote, he said there are many nice organizations in this world, such as, for instance, the Alcoholics Anonymous or the Red Cross or other philanthropical organizations. So that's nice. But even more important than that is organizations that give spiritual knowledge. But even more important than that is not only to work for the benefit of others, but also we have to work, the most important thing is to work for our own benefit, for our own salvation, for our own becoming conscious of Krishna, for our own reviving our relation with Krishna. If we're in the ocean drowning, it is very difficult to save anyone else. So our first business is to follow the principles by which we can become Krishna conscious. And even when we're trying to help others become Krishna conscious, we should do it in such a way as to help ourselves become Krishna conscious also. There is no need to try, or as Prabhupada said, if you want to catch a big fish, make sure you don't get wet yourself. It's all right to try to help others, but we should help them in such a way as it doesn't interfere with our own development of Krishna consciousness. Then, if we're actually doing our duty, if we actually have some vision of what Krishna wants, then we should also appreciate that Krishna's happiness is our happiness, that we should try to work to please Krishna, that Krishna accepts bhakti or love Of course, dutiful activity is also love, a little bit of it. Some transcendental vision is also love. But we can also try to understand how nice Krishna is. So we shouldn't neglect that. Krishna is the reservoir of all pleasure. He's the reservoir of all sweetness. And his activities with his devotees are also sweet. So we should also hear about Krishna's sweet pastimes with his devotees. And then we should try to act in a loving way towards Krishna and his devotees, because that's the essence of what Krishna consciousness is all about. In the spiritual world, there are not very complicated activities. There's no school to go to get a degree. There's no occupational duty that you have to learn. There is singing, there's dancing, there's cooking for Krishna, there's playing musical instruments for Krishna. There are 64 arts to please Krishna. So those are all devotional, or for the most part. And those are the things that we learn, especially how to cook nicely for Krishna, how to sing nicely for Krishna, how to dance nicely for Krishna, how to play with Krishna, out of love, to please Krishna, because he's the sweetest. And therefore, when one falls in love with Krishna, when one becomes Krishna conscious, one spontaneously wants to please him. Just like now, we want to please this body because we're in love with the body. And sometimes we're in love with things in relationship to the body. But basically speaking, we're in love with the body. Therefore, we like it when we can feed the body, when we can put the body to rest, when we can do abhishek to the body and bathe it. We have a very nice service attitude towards our body, and of course, towards our mind also, which can invent all kinds of creative ways of serving our body for things in relationship to the body. So, as we're attached to this body, when we become conscious of Krishna, we'll find out that Krishna is a much nicer person, much nicer object of service than this body. The love, happiness, the enlightenment we get from serving Krishna is unlimitedly more pleasurable and enjoyable and interesting than serving this body, which doesn't reciprocate with us very well. It simply demands more and more service without any real appreciation for what we're doing. Therefore, as we become dutiful in our activities in Krishna consciousness, as we gain greater understanding, at the same time, we should try to become more careful in our service, more appreciative in our service, more loving in our service, more ability to understand how nice Krishna is and that he's my friend. Even when we're put into difficulty, we should not think that Krishna has put me into difficulty for no purpose, or that by accident I'm put into difficulty. No, difficulty can be our greatest friend if it inspires us to take more shelter of Krishna. The whole material universe has been created in such a way as to either fulfill our gross and subtle desires or to inspire us to take shelter of Krishna. The more favorable thing is to take shelter of Krishna, especially in difficulty, because then we'll realize that there is no difficulty. Our only difficulty is we've forgotten Krishna. And when one remembers Krishna, then one lives apart from all material difficulty. When we wake up from a dream at night that the proverbial tiger is biting us, then we realize there was no tiger. it was just a dream. Similarly, our identification with this gross and subtle body is just a dream. Maybe a dream that lasts a little bit longer than our night dream, but it's not forever. And therefore, while we're living this dream, we should utilize it in Krishna's service. Just like at night, we may dream we're offering arti to Krishna, so that we get devotional credit for. Or we may dream something else outside of devotion, and we don't get any credit for that. Similarly, while we're living this experience, the material existence, we should utilize it for Krishna, and then we get devotional credit. And at the same time, as Krishna reveals himself, then internally and externally, we'll understand things properly, that actually it's all going on by Krishna's arrangement to inspire us to get closer and closer to him, and therefore end our material existence and go back to our actual existence in the spiritual world. So anyone who takes to this process, they're extremely fortunate, because even they may deviate, just like all of us may deviate sometime during the day, but even they deviate still, by the very nature of material experience, sooner or later they'll be forced to come back and take shelter of Krishna again, until they finally reach the goal of meeting Krishna face to face, along with his associates, and becoming eligible to go back to the spiritual world to begin our real life again with Krishna. So I'll stop there. Thank you. Any questions? Nitya Seva Devi Dasi.
Hare Krishna Gurudev. I was wondering about this when you said that in the eyes of material nature everyone is equal, and that everybody gets punished equally. Just like if somebody puts hand in the fire, so it doesn't matter who is putting the hand in the fire, but that person is anyway going to get burned. So I was just wondering if children are making some mistakes, so because they are innocent, so will they also be punished equally?
Punished by whom?
Huh?
Children innocent. Yes, children are seemingly innocent, but no one is innocent in the sense that any circumstance that we're put into is not by chance. Everyone, according to their past activities, has been given a certain body and certain circumstances to live under. So in that sense, no one is actually innocent in the sense that what he's experienced is just by chance, or he had no part to play in the circumstances he was put into. So if someone, but of course a child, Chanakya Pandit says up to like 5 years old, one should not chastise the child. In that sense, they're innocent, because they're just following their senses and mind, and they have no control over them. So therefore, there's no sense in trying to punish them for anything they do, because they don't know what they're doing. And punishing them won't have any positive effect, because they can't understand that they did anything wrong. But after 5 years old, when their intelligence is developed and they can understand right from wrong, then they may be chastised up until around 16 years old. And then if they haven't learned by the time they're 16 years old, it may not be very good for their parents to chastise them, because it may create enmity between their parents and the child. Does that answer your question at all?
No, thank you.
Arjun Saka?
Харе Кришна, дорогой Гуру Махарадж, дорогие преданные. Что делать, если ум очень сильный? То вот пока общество тебя принимает и отношения строятся хорошо, правильным образом, все нормально и спокойно, но ты не можешь быть в хороших отношениях с каждым, да? И когда возникают конфликты, Когда есть какое-то неприятие и ум очень сильный, то очень сильные беспокойства. И вот что делать?
Hare Krishna, Guru Maharaj, when my mind is so strong that to the point where the relationship with everyone around me are good, but sometimes my mind plays the role and it cannot be good relationship with each and everyone. So when the time comes, Arjuna Sakha Prabhu, включите, пожалуйста, микрофон. When the time comes that I am in conflict with somebody around me, what to do? That you cannot please everyone, that conflicts are unavoidable. What to do with such a strong mind?
Beat it with a shoe 100 times. The Bhaktisiddhanta Saraswati Prabhupada said, in the morning we should take a broom and beat it, our mind 100 times. In the evening we should take a shoe and beat it 100 times. What to do? We should pray to Krishna within our heart what to do. Otherwise, if we don't pray, if we don't remember Krishna, then we're under the external energy and we won't know what to do. Now, even if we remember Krishna, that doesn't mean that automatically we'll know what to do. So we have to pray to Krishna with a humble heart and then seek after instructions what to do. And when everything becomes clear, when Krishna gives us the intelligence what to do, then we can do that with determination. But until that, we shouldn't do anything. Because whatever we do, without knowing what Krishna wants us to do, to one degree or another will be wrong. So go through the process of finding out what Krishna wants us to do. And if we do that, when we find out what Krishna wants us to do, then we should do that with firm determination. Hare Krishna. Bhakti Lisa.
Харе Кришна, примите, пожалуйста, поклоны. Prahladananda Swami. А можно задать вопрос по стиху 5.16?
She's very interested in the verse 5:16. She's saying, can she ask you a question about 5:16?
5:16. Okay.
Хорошо.
Prahladananda Swami, а подскажите, пожалуйста, а вот этот вот уровень, который там описывается, что когда живое существо обретает знание, свет этого знания рассеивает тьму неведения и открывает ему истинную природу вещей, подобно тому, как солнце поднимается над горизонтом, озаряет все вокруг. Это происходит тогда, когда я лично увижу Кришну, как Друва и Нарада, или что должно случиться, чтобы у меня в жизни это произошло? Харе Кришна.
So that level that is described in 5:16, that when the soul sees Krishna, it completely destroys the darkness. That moment that described there, is that what will happen in my life? Do I have to see Krishna physically, like the Dhruva Maharaj or Prahlad Maharaj has seen him, in order to obtain that what's described in 5:16, like the sun is going to be present in my life and there will be no more place for darkness? What moment that level that described there is?
When you taste water, if you remember Krishna, that's the beginning. You don't have to see Krishna face to face. We just have to serve Krishna. And then Krishna will give us enlightenment to see him clearer. Not only in the spiritual world with his spiritual pastimes, but even in this world. That Krishna is moving the sun, he's moving the moon, he's moving all living entities. Just like in the morning when the sun comes up, we may not see the sun, but when the sunlight enters into the room, we think the sun is there. Similarly, when we see Krishna in this world, how he's working, then we'll see Krishna is there. And that's also Krishna consciousness. That way we'll also remember Krishna, maybe in the form of the deity, or maybe just as a Gajendra, he understood, he prayed for the Supreme. So we'll see that the Supreme is working. We may not know who the Supreme is, but we'll give the Supreme some gratitude for giving us sunlight or moonlight or the taste in water. That way we become advanced in our consciousness of the Supreme. And if we know who the Supreme is, we'll also remember him, either in the form of the deity, or in the form of the descriptions in the books, or in the form of the holy name. And that's bringing us closer to Krishna. Therefore, Adao Shara Sada Sangatya Bhajana Kriya. There's simply different degrees of faith. And that degrees of faith and service, Krishna reveals himself to different degrees. But we can't expect Krishna to reveal everything about himself all at once, but he'll do it to different degrees according to our sincere attempts to serve him. Narayani Devidasi.
Hare Krishna Gurudev. I have a question from Rasavilasi Dasi. And she's wondering, because you mentioned that those that understand that they're not this body, they're basically twice born. And she was wondering if that's one of the requirements to become second initiated Brahmana, because that's one of the qualities of a Brahmana, or if you could maybe elaborate a little bit, because she's a bit confused.
Can you repeat the question again? I'm confused.
So you mentioned that those that understand that they are not this body, they are twice born, considered twice born already. And she was one. Yeah, is that not right?
What I said is that we're born in ignorance. And when we get a little indication that we're in ignorance and that there's something called knowledge, such as the fact that I'm not this body, at least theoretically, that gives us a little taste of reality, closer to reality. That's so-called a samskar. And that may impel us to further seek out information. But just a little understanding that we're not this body is not sufficient. It's only part, it's just an impetus to making further advancement. Just like I gave the example, one day I was distributing books at a university, and I met someone, I was showing them how the body's changing. In Prabhupada's books in the Bhagavad Gita, I showed them the picture, how the body's changing, but the soul, the little spark there is always the same. So I asked him, which of these bodies do you have now? And he pointed to one of them. And then he said, wow, that's fantastic. I'm not this body. So then I gave him the book back. I gave him the book and he said, well, why don't you take the book and give a donation? But he gave me the book back and shook my hand and said, actually, that's fantastic information. I'm not this body. That's wonderful. He said, but I'm not interested in your book. And then he left. So he got a little insight, but obviously it wasn't sufficient. Niguna, did you have a question? You're muted.
Yes, I have. Thank you. What happens is, I read in Srimad Bhagavatam that the Sahajas, they don't follow the rules and regulation, but they want to exhibit the ecstasy. Like I was like wondering, sometimes a person follows really strictly so many years, maybe 20 years you can follow, but you get so dry. And you don't, just from your experience, you just don't get the encouragement to actually follow, that you never got Krishna Prem, and you follow so strictly, and you know, that you're not encouraged to follow. So
Well, the question, following strictly may mean different things. We may strictly follow our own imagination of what we're supposed to be doing, and that may not be strict in the sense of understanding what Krishna wants us to do and doing it in such a way as it's pleasing to Krishna. So there's a mechanical way of following, and then we expect Krishna is going to mechanically reciprocate with us. Therefore, Prabhupada says there's a difference between philosophy and religion. One may be a fanatic follower of religion, but not understand the actual philosophy, what religion is all about. Therefore, one may be a fanatic, or one may strictly follow, but without the proper understanding, then it's called niyamagraha. One may strictly follow, but not have understanding, or one may not follow, and therefore certainly won't get any understanding. So we need both. We have to follow strictly, and at the same time, we have to have an understanding of how to follow, and what mood to follow. Then we can make some progress. Thank you all. Grantaraj, Srimad Bhagavad Gita ki jai, Srila Prabhupada ki jai, Gaur Premanande, Hari Bol.
Hari Hari Bol.
Thank you,
His Holiness
Gurudev.
Prahladananda Swami Maharaj ki.
Jai.
Jai.
Jai Shri Guru Maharaj.